I'm sorry. But I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
That was Charlie Chaplin from The Great Dictator. That was some call the greatest speech ever by Charlie Chaplin. My name is Mark and I am live from my airship right now. Gonna talk about some today's news and maybe some other stuff. So first up on the agenda is talking about Harvey Weinstein. Let's see if I can get a little picture of here. There's the guy. What a gorgeous guy. Look at him. Hi. Harvey Weinstein had secret hit list of names to quash sex scandal. Producer hired team to investigate 91 film industry figures in attempt to stop harassment claims going public. The Observer has gained access to a secret hit list of almost 100 prominent individuals targeted. Let me move this. 1 second. Targeted by Harvey Weinstein in an extraordinary attempt to discover what they knew about his sexual misconduct claims against him and whether they were intending to go public. The previously undisclosed list contains a total of 91 actors, publicists, producers, financiers, and others working in the film industry, all of whom Weinstein allegedly identified as part of a strategy to prevent accusers from going public with sexual misconduct claims against him. The names, apparently drawn up by Weinstein himself, were distributed to a team hired by the film producer to suppress claims that he had sexually harassed or assaulted numerous women. The document was compiled in early 2017, about 9 months before the storm that blew up on 5th of October, when the New York Times published a series of sexual harassment allegations against Weinstein. Or Weinstein. I don't know how that's pronounced. Weinstein, I think. I think everybody's saying Weinstein. Individuals named on the list were to be targeted by investigators who would covertly extract and accumulate information from those who might know of claims or who might come forward with allegations against the film producer. Feedback was then to be relayed to Weinstein and his lawyers. This article, by the way, is from The Guardian. The size of the list, 85 names appear on one document with an addendum identifying another 6 individuals, appears to corroborate claims that sexual misconduct allegations against the 65-year-old were an open secret throughout Hollywood. Prominent stars were among the first tranche of individuals on the list to testify publicly against Weinstein. Among those named were the actress Rose McGowan, who days after speaking out accused the producer of raping her. Another was Laura Madden, who told how Weinstein pestered her for massages at hotels in Dublin and London beginning in 1991. McGowan and Madden were among the first to speak out against Weinstein last month. A typed note of the document appears to suggest that by February 2016, Madden had already been targeted by one of Weinstein's hired investigators. Her view of the producer is, says the note, very bitter. Another name is Zelda Perkins, a London-based production assistant for Weinstein's Miramax film company, who left the firm's London offices on Brewer Street in Soho in 1998 after, she says, enduring years of sexual harassment by her boss. Last month, Perkins revealed that she had a broken confidentiality agreement to describe alleged sexual harassment by the Hollywood producer. Also on the list is the English actress Sophie Dix, who has described how her career trajectory was massively cut down after an alleged sexual assault by Weinstein in a London hotel, and who was among the first to come forward. Although at least 10 individuals are based in London, the majority live in New York, with others from Los Angeles. They include individuals working in acquisitions, marketing and distribution, along with producers, publicists, and human resources staff, as well as actors. 43 men are named and 48 women. Weinstein, the list confirms, was aware that the New York Times was gathering testimony from his victims long before it first ran the story. A public relations professional is named alongside a note stating that H.W., Harvey Weinstein, in contact with him, friends with Jodi Kantor. Kantor is the New York Times journalist who broke the story that immediately engulfed the producer and the film production company he co-founded with his brother. More than 50 of the names have been colored red to highlight those who should be prioritized by investigators, individuals Weinstein most keenly wanted to target. The names of the actresses McGowan, Dix, and Madden are all colored red. Following an initial list of 85 names, another 6 individuals were identified during August 2017, including the actress Annabella Sciorra, who 2 months later publicly alleged she was raped by Weinstein after he barged into her apartment in the 1990s. Also named on the later list is the U.S. actress Catherine Kendall. Weeks later, she revealed how a naked Weinstein literally chased her around his New York apartment in 1993. Another is a former Weinstein employee, Lauren O'Connor, who documented several allegations against the producer in a 2015 memo in which she described a toxic environment for women at Miramax. Interestingly, the document includes the filmmaker Brett Ratner, who has been accused of sexual harassment or misconduct by 6 women in the wake of the Weinstein allegations. It is unclear whether Weinstein intended subsequently to approach any of the individuals on the list with a non-disclosure agreement. Evidence has emerged which shows that over the past 3 decades, Weinstein reached at least 8 settlements with women, according to 2 company officials speaking on condition of anonymity, after he was confronted with allegations including sexual harassment and unwanted physical contact. Not surprisingly, considering the psychological abuse and bullying allegations emerging from his former film studio, Miramax, more of the film studio employees are also named. Among them is Kathy DeClessis, former assistant to Weinstein's brother Bob, who has revealed that she told him about Harvey sexually harassing women over a period of 25 years. So far, more than 50 women have come forward with allegations of rape, harassment, and inappropriate behavior, prompting police investigations in the U.S. and U.K. Weinstein unequivocally denies all claims of non-consensual sex, a spokesman for the producer has said. The spokesman dismissed reports that the producer hired spies to stop claims, saying, "It is a fiction to suggest that any individuals were targeted or suppressed at any time." The producer's alleged targets were often young, aspiring actresses. Among the high-profile names who have spoken out against Weinstein are Angelina Jolie, Cara Delevingne, and Kate Beckinsale. Okay, no comments here at the bottom of the page. So, Weinstein. I think it's great that this stuff is finally coming out. Some of this stuff, at least in Hollywood. We've known about really dirty things going on in Hollywood for a long time now. For example, Corey Feldman has been talking about pedophilia for a long time, I think at least a decade. He alleges that that he was abused, that he was sexually abused, and that this is rampant in Hollywood. Now he has finally this year, because of what's coming out against Weinstein and other people, he has formally filed charges in Los Angeles and says that he fears for his life right now, which is understandable. So this stuff has been around. A lot of people have known about it. You have Louis C.K. coming out of the abuse closet. All these people are coming out of the abuse closet. But one thing I've noticed is that no one is getting targeted who is really high up. I mean, Weinstein, he's pretty high up, a Hollywood producer. But we're talking about the guys who are, and gals, who are really just like 1 or 2 steps away from the top dogs. And the top dogs being the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the so-called Windsors, the British royal family, who are not actually British. But we're talking about the richest people in the world, the power players with the most money, the most power. We're not, and the ones who are like 1 or 2 steps away, I'm thinking about like the Clintons, the Podestas. Where are the Podestas right now? Does anyone know where John or Tony Podesta are? And why aren't they going after more? Stuff is starting to come out now. More, the mainstream media even is talking about Bill Clinton. Of course, anytime they mention Bill Clinton with his rape victims or whatever, which I don't think they talk about, they mostly just focus on the Monica Lewinsky affair, which is bad enough. And they always have to bring Trump in and say, oh, Trump has had women that have said he's done weird stuff. But they are talking about Clinton more. They're talking about Bill Clinton and questioning the Clinton legacy. This is good, but they're not actually going, Hillary Clinton is not arrested, Bill Clinton is not arrested. We're not going after the really big dogs here. But it's great, it's coming out, but is this just a smoke screen, kind of get us to vent, do our Orwellian 2 minutes of hate on these folks, and not really look at the bigger picture of how we're being manipulated? But once again, it is great this stuff is coming out. And some people think that more stuff is coming out. There's this thing right now with I don't want to talk much. I don't know much about this, but I'll just briefly mention the Q Anonymous that's posting on 4chan, on the POL, which is the political forum on 4chan. All this weird stuff about that the elite are being rounded up, and they talk about the Podestas were arrested, but only he surrendered under agreement that there would be a mainstream media blackout on his arrest. This stuff is, I don't buy that. I don't buy all this. Like, how could he possibly be in a position to negotiate anything if he's in the position he's supposed to be in? Yeah, I just don't know. And people, because the real big dogs are not, they're not being arrested. Nobody's going after them. Okay, so we got like the Clintons and the Podestas. They're sort of the canaries in the coal mine. If you want to know if the elite are really being rounded up, the elite crooks and the mafia, the gangsters, the banksters. If you want to know if those guys really are being threatened at all, you want to look at like the Bushes. I will say Bushes because I'm not partisan. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. The Bushes and the Clintons, if they go after those guys, then you can, okay, we're starting to get somewhere. So that's that with Weinstein. And so I have a few stories lined up that I want to talk about. Weinstein is the first one. And the second story, this I found on Technocracy, which is a really neat website, technocracy.news, where they talk about, what do you know, the technocracy, yeah, which is the technological, the burgeoning technological Orwellian control of the planet, where they use technology and they embrace technology, and eventually it's being used to suppress humanity rather than help humanity. So this article from Technocracy is called NBC News, having kids is bad for Earth, procreating deemed immoral. Okay. Okay. This is written by Travis Reeder. The author is parroting UN Sustainable Development dogma that calls for population reduction throughout the world. Agenda 21 architects in the 1990s suggested that the Earth could only sustain 600 to 800 million people. What would happen to the other 6.5 billion people? Claiming that it's immoral to have children that you selfishly add to your personal carbon footprint is anti-human, anti-civilization, anti-Earth. T, an editor, that's a Technocracy editor, I guess. Or it's an editor from Tennessee. Could be. A startling and honestly distressing view is beginning to receive serious consideration in both academic and popular discussions of climate change ethics. According to this view, having a child is a major contributor to climate change. The logical takeaway here is that everyone on Earth ought to consider having fewer children. Although culturally controversial, the scientific half of this position is fairly well established. Several years ago, scientists showed that having a child, especially for the world's wealthy, is one of the worst things you can do for the environment. That data was recycled this past summer in a paper showing that none of the activities most likely to reduce individuals' carbon footprint are widely discussed. The second moral aspect of the view, that perhaps we ought to have fewer children, is also being taken seriously in many circles. Indeed, I have written widely on the topic myself. But scientific evidence and moral theorizing aside, this is a complicated question with plenty of opponents. In what follows, I will address some of the challenges to this idea. Because while I recognize that this is an uncomfortable discussion, I believe that the seriousness of climate change justifies uncomfortable conversations. In this case, that means that we need to stop pretending the decision to have children doesn't have environmental and ethical consequences. The argument that having a child adds to one's carbon footprint depends on the view that each of us has a personal carbon ledger for which we are responsible. Furthermore, some amount of an offspring's emissions count toward the parent's ledger. Most environmentalists accept this story of ledger view when it comes to recycling, driving, and flying, but support begins to decrease when applied to family planning. The opposition is typified by Vox writer David Roberts, who argues that such an accounting scheme is utterly impractical because it seems to entail that one is never responsible for one's own emissions. Because we don't want to double count, as Roberts says. This means parents are really only responsible for their kids' emissions. The flaw in this objection is the plausible sounding caveat, we don't want to double count. Because why wouldn't we want to double count? If moral responsibility added up mathematically, then double counting would be a serious problem. But I think it's clear that we should not accept a mathematical model of responsibility. Consider a different case. If I release a murderer from prison, knowing full well that he intends to kill innocent people, then I bear some responsibility for those deaths, even though the killer is also fully responsible. My having released him doesn't make him less responsible. He did it, but his doing it doesn't eliminate my responsibility either. Something similar is true, I think, when it comes to having children. Once my daughter is an autonomous agent, she will be responsible for her emissions. But that doesn't negate my responsibility. Moral responsibility simply isn't mathematical. If you buy this view of responsibility, you might eventually admit that having many children is wrong, or at least morally suspect. For standard environmental reasons, having a child imposes high emissions on the world, while the parents get the benefit. So like with any high-cost luxury, we should limit our indulgence. The rebuttal to this argument is that individual actions simply don't make a significant difference, and that institutional action is how you actually have an impact. Do everything you can to minimize your emissions, and the earth won't give a damn. All of these claims are true. Most individual actions won't matter in the context of a trillion-ton, all-time anthropogenic carbon budget. And indeed, policy and collective action are important for seriously mitigating the harms of climate change. But does this mean my individual actions are morally permissible? I think the answer is clearly no. If morality only applied to meaningful change, then morality would rarely recommend actions of symbolic integrity or defiance. We would not, for example, praised the activist who stands up for what she believes and until there was evidence that her tactics work. And those who sacrifice their own interests in order to contribute minuscule amounts of time, money, or labor to alleviating global hunger or poverty would look like suckers rather than saints. I don't think these judgments sit well with our moral sensibilities. On reflection, many of us believe that it is wrong to contribute to massive, systematic harms, even if each individual contribution isn't causally significant. This explains why many of us think you are obligated to do things like recycle, especially when it's easy. Your recycling doesn't matter much to the environment. The earth doesn't give a damn, but you should do it anyway. The confusion around this sort of moral claim is understandable. Our moral psychology has not yet evolved to solve the problems of today. Humanity grew up in relatively small groups. Rules like don't harm others or don't steal and cheat are easy to make sense of in a world of largely individual interactions. That is not our world any longer, though, and our moral sense is evolving to reflect that difference. Moral decisions are no longer about math. Being a part of the solution matters. The importance of this argument for family size is obvious. If having one fewer child reduces one's contribution to the harms of climate change, the choice of family size becomes a morally relevant one. I'm certainly not arguing that we should shame parents or even that we're obligated to have a certain number of children. As I've said elsewhere, I don't think there is a tidy answer to the challenging question of procreative ethics. But that does not mean we're off the moral hook. As we face the very real prospect of catastrophic climate change, difficult, even uncomfortable conversations are important. Yes, we should discuss the ethics of making babies with care and respect, but we should discuss it. Well, okay. Well, here's how I see that. We are so wasteful on this planet. You see it everywhere. You see it in the landfills, the stuff that gets thrown away. You see it in the excessive greed of the wealthy. I mean, you see families, who maybe don't have any kids or just one or two kids that have multiple mansions. A very small percentage of the population has a large portion of the wealth. And yet, even with that great divide of wealth, the huge wealth gap, the great amount of waste, we still make it here on this planet with our 7 billion people. We're doing basically, a lot of people are hungry, okay. But if we just share a little bit of that waste with the hungry, that would all go away. If we would just work together and cooperate a little bit, we would have enough space on this planet, enough resources for 20 billion people. Easy. So these types of stories, I feel like, are usually like Club of Rome, like these people, the Vatican, they want to suppress humanity. They want to, like, they do the vaccines, they do these are the same guys back in the day that were behind eugenics. So that's what you got to understand. These things follow through. There are still Nazis today. There are still people that did eugenics still going through today. It's always, since after World War II, many of these type of things had to go underground. They had to hide. But they're still there. They're still there. So when they talk about reducing the population, who do they think they're really talking about? They're talking about poor people. Or they're talking about black people. They're talking about darker skinned people, Native Americans, indigenous populations. That's who always gets reduced, not the ones in control or the wealthy. Just like it's never their kids who go to war. It's always the poor people's children that go to war. It's always the poor that are the ones who keep falling for this war scam, where we just keep going to war, keep sending our young people over there to die. Okay, another interesting story that I want to talk about robots. Here we go. This is by Corbett Report. I found these guys on YouTube. I'm pretty sure their YouTube name is Corbett Report, so check them out. They're on Steemit and many other places. It's called When Robots Rule the Markets. The Corbett Report community held a vigorous discussion on the future of artificial intelligence this past summer, and the results are in. No one understands the question, myself included. Now, to be fair, I didn't do a very good framing of the debate, so as is typical with this particular topic, it quickly became the standard AI argument about whether or not toasters have souls. I toast, therefore I am. I exaggerate only slightly. I understand why the conversation inevitably steers in this direction. The nature of consciousness and the question of the soul are topics that have fascinated us as a species for thousands of years, and the advent of robotic consciousness threatens to upend the deeply held beliefs of billions of people. Perhaps inevitably, the prophets of the technological singularity have brought this issue directly to the fore by creating their own religion with a godhead based on artificial intelligence, AI, developed through computer hardware and software. It's called Way of the Future and was founded with a large degree of mainstream media fanfare from the usual suspects by, wait for it, an ex-Google engineer. That's right, after developing our modern-day real-life Big Brother's self-driving car, this Silicon Valley dropout has started a church for people to worship our coming robot overlords. You can't make this stuff up. But generally speaking, this is not the kind of thing that people researching in the field think about. So what do they think about? Oh, things like, what will the financial world be like when Skynet runs markets? Think that sounds crazy? Well, take that up with our good friends over at the Shadowy Bank for International Settlements. Even shadowier little brother, the Financial Stability Board. They just published a white paper on that very subject. Well, okay, they don't quite phrase it like that. Their paper has a considerably less snappy title, Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning in Financial Services. Market Developments and Financial Stability Implications. But come on, these are the minions of the central banksters. It's their job to make even the most incredible things sound eye-wateringly boring. So what do the egg-headed lackeys of the bankster oligarchs conclude? Why, that AI is a swell thing, of course. It'll make everything more efficient, and even if there's an itsy-bitsy, teeny-weeny risk of a hiccup or two, everyone will be better off for it. In fact, just a moment. In fact, they go out of their way to misinterpret their own scenarios in such a way as to make the inherent problems with the technology seem inconsequential. For example, they noted that AI and machine learning may enable certain market participants to collect and analyze information on a greater scale, but then nonsensically conclude that these disparities in ability could reduce information asymmetries and thus contribute to the efficiency and stability of markets. It's worth reading that premise and conclusion again just to see how completely they contradict each other. Certain market participants who have access to the AI will be able to collect and analyze information more quickly than their competitors. But that will reduce information asymmetry. Well, maybe after they've communicated that information to the rest of the market in the form of a buy or sell order, but it's a bit late for everyone else then, isn't it? Contrast that line of thinking with Vladimir Putin's recent observation that the one who becomes the leader in this sphere will be the ruler of the world. The disparity between the AI haves and have-nots won't reduce information asymmetry, it will magnify it by orders of magnitude. In essence, the first market participant to deploy effective AI will be the ruler of the market. To be fair, the FSB report does pay lip service to some of the important risks surrounding AI technology, like its lack of auditability or the issue of data bias. But these problems are inevitably waved away by the study's authors, either by calling for vague measures like testing and training, or calling on government regulators to oversee these new developments. The most infuriating part of this whole meaningless academic exercise is that we don't have to theorize about the potential effects of AI in some imaginary far-off future scenario. We already have real-world examples of exactly how, admittedly crude, AI technologies can wreak havoc on world markets. Remember the flash crash of May 6, 2010, when the U.S. stock market crashed by $862 billion in a breathtaking 36-minute window and then magically recovered just as quickly? I do. And for those who weren't keeping track of that story, it culminated in the 2015 slaying of the sacrificial lamb, Navinder Singh Sarao, a British day trader who supposedly caused the entire meltdown from his parents' house in Hounslow. That was when Sarao was arrested for spoofing the markets by placing a flood of buy orders that he never intended to commit, and then canceling his order and cashing in at the now elevated price. As I reported at the time, the charge was fraudulent from the outset. Not only do untold scores of traders regularly spoof the market in this way, but Sarao himself had used those very same techniques 250 separate times before the flash crash. So why did it suddenly cause mayhem on that particular day? The answer, of course, is that it was the high-frequency trading algorithms that now account for the majority of trading that were the real culprit. The unspoken and uncomfortable truth is that Sarao is only playing on a problem enabled by the high-speed trading algorithms that now count for as much as 60% of the trading volume in the U.S. futures markets. These computer-generated trades can function orders of magnitude faster than any human, reacting to changes in market direction and implementing buy and sell orders on the basis of that knowledge thousands of times per second. As the flash crash displayed, once the algorithms get tricked into selling into a plunge, the entire market can be plunged into chaos in a matter of minutes. Members of the Way of the Future Church will no doubt protest that the HFT algos operating on the markets in 2010, their algorithms operating on the markets in 2010 were so primitive compared to the coming sentient AI godhead that the comparison is absurd. But they would say that, wouldn't they? However, as that sage philosopher Donald Rumsfeld reminds us, there are things we know that we don't know, and things that we don't know that we don't know. That's right. Yeah, I remember that. And it's the latter kind that are the real problem. The things we don't know that we don't know. And when it comes to AI, it is a very good question as to why anyone who had made a significant advance toward creating a truly artificial intelligence would share that market monopolizing information with anyone else. Despite the hype about OpenAI from the usual hypesters, is anyone under the delusion that the evil geniuses in the bowels of the Pentagon, let alone the agents of FANG, are really going to keep the public up to date on their latest adventures in quantum computing, or neural network development, or natural language processing, or nonlinear computation? Just think of P-TECH, the legendary software that backdoored its way into the most sensitive computer systems in the world and promised to give Okay. Promised to give its users godlike powers to actually predict events before they happened, and which was almost certainly deployed on 9/11 by the real perpetrators of that false flag attack. Or think of the Promise software from which it was allegedly derived, the stolen program that lay at the center of the Inslaw octopus story. These programs are decades old by this point. How much more advanced is the software that will be used to perpetrate the next false flag attack? There are many questions surrounding the development of this technology that poses an existential threat to humanity. But most people are too busy worrying about whether computers can have a soul to address these concerns. And the ones who aren't distracted by these philosophical puzzles are working for the likes of the FSB to put the shiniest PR gloss on the whole subject. I don't have the definitive answers here, but I do know this. The singularists are at least right that information processing power is advancing exponentially, and there will be nearly unimaginable changes to our society coming in our lifetime. And call it a computer superintelligence or whatever you want, but if we leave the development of this technology to the likes of Elon Musk and Bill Gates and MIT and the FSB and the Dr. Strangeloves at the Rand Corporation, the consequences will be horrifically predictable. Amen, brother. Now I like the shot of Putin. There you go. Well, I'm going to roll a little cigarette right here. Sure. This is what you do. You take the tobacco and you put it in the paper. Guys, this is a healthier way to smoke tobacco, believe it or not. Because this way you know what you're getting. You're getting the tobacco. And it's not the chemical stuff. Did you know that in some cigarettes there's not even real tobacco in it? It's just other substances such as rice filler with tobacco juice added to it? Isn't that lovely? This is real tobacco. And I can smoke here on my airship. I got plenty of ventilation up here. Nobody's got to worry about breathing my secondhand smoke. I can smoke all I want up here. That's why you guys should come up here with me. Up here in the clouds. It's much nicer from this perspective. Oh, the earth is a happier place from up here. I mean, just look at that. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. You should see me in some other places I'm going to go. You'll get to see some other cool places. Right now we're just above the clouds. That's all you can see. So, we're talking about AI. Yeah, I mean, I think Putin basically got it right. The organization to get the first AI that's really good is just going to be light years ahead of everybody. Take control of the market, whatever. Who knows how this all is going to go? I don't know. I really don't know much to say about the AI. Like those technocracy guys, it's not something you just want to trust or just assume it's going to be good for sure. But why take it to the extreme of Elon Musk, who thinks that it's just it's guaranteed that AI is going to be smarter than people, and so therefore, this is his argument, therefore we need to put implants in our brain so that we can have direct control of the AI, as if that's going to allow you to directly control it. It doesn't make any sense. I have to say, he's got some nutty ideas, and his company Tesla is funded, from my understanding, it's highly subsidized by the government. It would just go under if it wasn't subsidized. Anyways, so, well, that's it for today's live stream. So hopefully we'll be back again with this soon. I was going to try and do this more often, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll get in a different location next time below the clouds so you can see where I'm at. And until next time, be vigilant. Peace out.